The morning Ava Thompson's world shifted began quietly, almost imperceptibly, in the small town of Crestwood. Sunlight filtered through her bedroom window, brushing the faded wallpaper with a soft golden glow. But the warmth in the room could not reach the cold knot in her chest. Ava, 17, stared at the cracked mirror on her dresser, tracing the jagged lines of its fractures as if she could understand her own reflection through them. Life had never been easy. Her father had left years ago. Her mother worked 2 jobs to keep their home from falling apart. And the laughter of friends had always felt like a distant melody she could hear but never join. Yet today felt heavier, darker, as if the universe itself had pressed its hand against her shoulders, forcing her to acknowledge the weight of all she had carried alone. School offered no reprieve. Hallways buzzed with chatter and lockers slammed with routine urgency. But for Ava, each sound cut like glass. Whispers followed her through the corridors, rumors she neither asked for nor deserved, yet she held her head high, a quiet defiance burning in her chest. Her solace was in the small things, the gentle purr of her cat at home, the worn pages of her favorite books, the fleeting moments when a stranger's smile reminded her she existed outside her solitude. But today, even these simple comforts seemed distant, shadows dancing beyond her grasp. Then, during lunch, she saw him, a younger boy, no older than 12, sitting alone at a table near the gym entrance. His backpack was sprawled across the floor, books scattered, his small shoulders trembling. Around him, classmates laughed and teased, indifferent to his struggle. Ava's heart clenched. She remembered that same vulnerability in herself, the isolation that had once made her shrink from the world. Without a second thought, she walked over, kneeling beside him. "Here," she said softly, gathering the books and placing them neatly on the table. The boy's eyes, wide and unsure, flickered toward her. Thank you," he whispered. That moment, fleeting and ordinary to the world, felt monumental to Ava's spark of connection in a place that had long been hollow. After school, Ava discovered another challenge waiting for her. The old community library, a building she had often escaped to, was slated for closure. Years of dusty shelves, countless handwritten notes in borrowed books, and the quiet sanctuary it provided to kids like her were about to vanish. Determined, she rallied a few friends, pounding the pavement with petitions, social media posts, and heartfelt letters to the town council. Weeks passed, frustration mounting as her pleas seemed to echo into a void. But Ava refused to give up. She remembered her own need for hope in broken places, and she would not let others lose theirs too. One chilly evening, as she delivered yet another petition, Ava stumbled upon Mrs. Henderson, the elderly librarian, struggling with a broken dolly full of returned books. Without hesitation, Ava rushed to help. The old woman's face lit with relief. "You have no idea how much this means to me, dear," she said, voice trembling with gratitude. In that simple act of kindness, Ava realized something profound. Strength was not in grand gestures, but in the quiet, persistent choices to lift others. Even when one's own world felt heavy, weeks of perseverance began to pay off. The town council agreed to delay the library's closure and fund renovations, inspired not only by Ava's determination but by the community's response. Children, parents, and volunteers poured in, breathing life back into the worn walls. And in that space, Ava discovered something she had never expected, a sense of belonging, of purpose, and of beauty in the act of restoring what was broken. Yet, life had more lessons in store. One morning, Ava received a letter from her estranged father. It was brief, awkward, an apology wrapped in years of absence. She read it alone in the library, her fingers tracing the words like fragile threads. Memories of abandonment, anger, and longing collided within her. But instead of shutting the letter away, she allowed herself to feel the pain and the possibility of reconciliation. She didn't know if forgiveness would come immediately, but she recognized that rising again sometimes meant confronting the places that hurt you most. Spring blossomed in Crestwood, and Ava's journey continued. She mentored the younger children who flocked to the library, helping them discover the joy of reading and the safety of a listening ear. The boy she had helped months ago returned, now confident and smiling, clutching a book she had recommended. "Thank you, Ava," he said, "for showing me I'm not invisible." She felt tears prick at her eyes, not from sadness, but from the profound weight of shared humanity. In lifting others, she realized she was lifting herself as well. The culmination of her efforts arrived at the town's annual community fair. Ava was invited to speak about her work with the library and the importance of hope in broken places. Standing before a crowd of faces, some curious, some weary, some skeptical, she felt the familiar flutter of nerves. But as she looked out at the audience, She saw, reflected in their eyes, the same longing she had once carried, the yearning for recognition, for kindness, for a chance to rise. Her voice wavered at first, but then steadied, carrying her words with clarity and compassion. She spoke of resilience, empathy, and the extraordinary power of ordinary acts. When she finished, the applause was not only loud but genuine, echoing the truth she had lived, that broken places could be mended through courage, community, and love. As night fell over Crestwood, Ava walked home under a sky dusted with stars. Each step felt lighter than the last, each breath a reminder of how far she had come. She passed the library, now bustling with life, the windows glowing warmly in the darkness. A sense of peace settled in her chest. She had risen again, not because life had been easy, but because she had chosen to confront the brokenness, to act with kindness, and to embrace hope, even when it seemed scarce. In the quiet moments before sleep, Ava opened her journal and wrote, "We are not defined by the pain we endure, but by the courage we summon to rise. Even in the places that feel shattered, hope can grow." Closing the notebook, she smiled, feeling the truth of her words pulse through her. Strength was not the absence of struggle, but the ability to stand again, tender, imperfect, and unwavering. And so, Ava Thompson, ordinary, yet extraordinary, continued to rise, carrying with her the light of compassion, the warmth of perseverance, and the unshakable belief that even in the most broken places, humanity could heal, hope could flourish, and one heart could make a difference that echoed far beyond itself. As summer slowly shifted toward early autumn, Ava found herself walking through the quiet streets of Crestwood with a renewed sense of purpose. The library renovation had been completed, and children filled the once empty space with laughter and curiosity. Yet Ava understood that hope was not a one-time triumph, it was a daily choice. Each morning, she arrived early to open the doors, arranging the books, setting up activity tables, and greeting each child with a smile that had become as familiar as the sun rising over the town. One afternoon, as she helped a group of children settle into story time, she noticed a young girl sitting alone in the corner, fidgeting with a worn bracelet around her wrist. Ava knelt beside her gently. "Hi, I'm Ava. Would you like to join us?" The girl hesitated, glancing toward the circle of energetic kids. But there was something in Ava's calm, encouraging gaze that drew her in. Slowly, she joined the group, her fingers curling around the pages of a picture book. By the end of the session, she was smiling, a tiny spark of connection that warmed Ava's heart more than any applause ever could. The same week, the town announced a charity art fair to raise funds for the library's reading programs. Ava eagerly volunteered, transforming one corner of the hall into a story station where children could illustrate the books they loved most. Amid the hum of voices and clatter of paintbrushes, she spotted a boy standing hesitantly at the edge of the room. He had wide, anxious eyes and a notebook clutched to his chest. Ava walked over and knelt to his level. "Would you like to draw with us?" she asked softly. The boy nodded timidly. Hours later, his notebook lay open on the table, pages bursting with colorful characters and scenes that told stories of courage, friendship, and kindness. Watching him, Ava realized that her own journey from isolation to purpose was now inspiring others to take their first steps toward hope. It wasn't always easy. Some days, Ava still felt the lingering weight of the years she had spent invisible, the quiet sting of being overlooked and underestimated. Yet she carried those moments not as scars, but as reminders of empathy, a compass pointing toward those who needed encouragement most. One particularly rainy afternoon, a frantic mother approached the library entrance with her young son in tow. The boy's face was streaked with tears, his small body trembling as he clutched a half-torn notebook. I don't know what to do," the mother admitted. "He's been struggling at school. He feels like he doesn't belong." Ava smiled gently. "Let's give him a place to belong. Even just for today," she said, leading them inside. Hours later, the boy was laughing, drawing alongside other children, discovering that a few caring words and patient attention could create a safe space in the midst of a storm. Meanwhile, Ava's own family life began to shift as well. Her mother, tired but proud, often watched from the kitchen window as Ava walked home with the children's laughter echoing behind her. "You're changing this town, Ava," she said one evening as they shared a quiet dinner. Ava shook her head. "I'm just doing what I wish someone had done for me," she replied softly, realizing that small acts of kindness could ripple far beyond their origin. It was in these moments she understood a deeper truth. Hope could grow anywhere, even in places that had once felt broken beyond repair if someone was willing to nurture it with patience, courage, and love. The culmination of her efforts arrived unexpectedly. The town council announced a Young Leaders of Hope program, recognizing teenagers who contributed meaningfully to the community. Ava, modest and quietly proud, was nominated for her work at the library. During the awards ceremony, as her name was called, she walked to the stage with her familiar notebook in hand. The applause was warm and genuine, yet Ava's mind was not on the recognition, it was on the children she had helped, on the shy boy who had smiled for the first time, on the girl who had joined storytime after months of isolation. She realized that every act of hope, every gesture of compassion, mattered far more than any certificate or trophy. After the ceremony, Ava returned to the library, opening its doors for an evening reading session. Outside, the sun had dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and violet. The children gathered around her, their eager eyes reflecting the fading light, and she began to read aloud. Her voice, once quiet and uncertain, now carried warmth and confidence. She read of heroes and challenges, of courage and friendship, and with every word, the room seemed to glow brighter. When she finished, the children clapped, their excitement unrestrained. But the most powerful moment was silent. Ava looked around at their faces and realized she had helped build more than a love of stories. She had helped them discover hope within themselves. That night, as Ava walked home beneath a sky dusted with stars, she felt a quiet strength settle in her chest. The library, the children, the community, none of it was perfect. None of it was easy. Yet through persistence, compassion, and courage, she had learned a truth far greater than any challenge she had faced. Broken places could become whole again, not by magic, but through the tireless, heartfelt efforts of those willing to care. And Ava knew, without doubt, that she would continue to rise, not only for herself, but for every heart searching for light in a world that sometimes seemed overwhelmingly dark. Finally, sitting at her desk that night, Ava opened her journal and wrote a simple line that captured everything she had come to understand, even in the places that seemed shattered. Hope can take root, grow, and bloom. We rise again not because life is perfect, but because we choose to lift ourselves and others with love. She closed the notebook, a gentle smile spreading across her face. Outside, the town of Crestwood slept peacefully under a canopy of stars. Ava's heart, once weighed down by fear and loneliness, now pulsed with a resilient, unstoppable rhythm. She had discovered her purpose, her strength, and the power to rise again. And she would carry it, every day, wherever she went, as autumn deepened. The crisp air carried the scent of fallen leaves and warm fireplaces through Crestwood. Ava noticed subtle changes everywhere. Children she had once helped struggled less with shyness or fear, now greeting her with smiles that seemed to say, "We are stronger because of you." Even the youngest visitors to the library, who had barely spoken their first words aloud, began reading to small groups. Encouraged by the environment Ava had helped cultivate, she watched them from across the room, her heart swelling with quiet pride, realizing that hope, once planted, had begun to grow on its own. But life, true to its unpredictable nature, continued to test her resolve. One afternoon, a storm rolled in, turning the town streets slick with rain and wind. Lightning flashed across the darkening sky, and the library's roof groaned under the force of the downpour. Inside, Ava gathered children close as the wind rattled windows and water seeped through a crack near the entrance. Panic flickered in their eyes, and for a moment, Ava felt the familiar sting of doubt. What if she wasn't enough? What if her efforts, all the kindness she had given, weren't enough to protect them from the harshness of the world? Then she remembered the words Mrs. Henderson had once spoken. Strength is choosing to rise every time life pushes you down. With renewed determination, Ava calmed the children, guiding them to safe corners, reading aloud from her favorite stories, and offering quiet reassurances. The storm raged on, but inside the library, a warm bubble of courage and trust enveloped them. When the sky finally cleared and the first rays of sunlight broke through the clouds, the children hugged her, whispering thanks and showing her drawings they had made during the storm. In that moment, Ava realized that resilience was contagious, and by choosing to stand strong herself, she had given them the courage to weather their own storms. Her own family began noticing how her actions rippled outward. Her mother, once exhausted and constantly anxious about bills and responsibilities, began participating in library programs, helping organize reading circles and craft sessions. Her younger brother, who had always been shy, started volunteering alongside her, carrying books, helping children with puzzles, and gaining confidence in ways Ava had never imagined. Even neighbors who had once barely said hello now greeted her warmly, inspired by the positive energy she radiated. Ava understood that change was not just personal, it spread like light, illuminating corners of the world that had been dim for far too long. Winter approached, bringing cold winds and early snow. The town, now thriving with community spirit, prepared for the annual winter festival. Ava had been asked to help organize storytelling sessions for the event. She hesitated at first. Public speaking still made her heart pound, but she agreed, determined to face her fears. On the night of the festival, the town square sparkled with lights and laughter. Children crowded around the stage, eager to hear stories, while parents watched proudly. Ava stepped up, holding her notebook, feeling the weight of anticipation. Her hands trembled, but her heart was steady. She began to read, her voice soft at first, then stronger, weaving tales of hope, courage, and kindness. When she finished, the applause was thunderous. But more importantly, she saw the faces of children lit with awe, understanding that even in broken places, hope could flourish. That night, as Ava walked home through streets lined with snow-dusted trees, she reflected on how far she had come. The girl who once felt invisible, lost in her own silence, had become a beacon for others. Every act of compassion, every moment of courage, had contributed to a tapestry of hope stretching across her town. And she realized something profound. Rising again wasn't a single moment, it was a lifetime of choosing to believe, to care, and to act, even when the world seemed indifferent. Before sleep, Ava opened her journal one last time, writing words that captured the essence of her journey. We may stumble, we may fall, but every act of love and courage builds a bridge from brokenness to hope. And when we rise, we lift the world with us. She closed the notebook and looked out her window, watching the snow glisten under the moonlight. For the first time in years, the weight she had carried felt lighter. She understood that her purpose was not just to survive, but to nurture, to uplift, and to inspire. And with that knowledge, Ava Thompson, in her quiet, yet unstoppable way, would continue to rise again and again, turning broken places into beacons of hope for anyone willing to see the light.